Amelia Earhart's shocking disappearance exposed. Join me as I dive deep into the mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance and try to uncover the truth behind the rumors. July 2, 1937. Over the vast, empty Pacific, a voice crackles through the radio. We must be on you, but cannot see you. Gas is running low. And just like that, the world's most famous female pilot, Amelia Earhart, went silent. She was on the verge of completing a record-breaking flight around the globe. Then, she, her navigator, and her top-of-the-line plane simply vanished. The official story is clean and simple: they ran out of fuel, crashed into the ocean, and sank without a trace. But a collection of puzzling radio signals heard for days after she disappeared, and a trail of intriguing clues, suggest a different, more harrowing story. So, what really happened to Amelia Earhart? To get the disappearance, you have to get the woman. Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot, she was a rock star. In an age when flying was still a wild frontier, she broke records and defied expectations with a cool, quiet confidence. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, a death-defying feat that made her one of the most famous people on the planet. Imagine the heroism of Charles Lindbergh blended with the glamour of a movie star. That was Amelia. She became a powerful symbol of modern womanhood, a best-selling author, and even a fashion designer. Her biggest dream was to be the first woman to fly around the world. This was more than just a flight, it was the capstone of a life lived on the edge. She had a state-of-the-art Lockheed Electra 10E she called her flying laboratory, heavily modified with extra fuel tanks to conquer the globe. She already knocked out most of the grueling 29,000-mile journey, drawing massive crowds at every stop. By July 1937, only the Pacific Ocean stood between her and a place in history. The whole world was holding its breath. The plan was as bold as it was dangerous. Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, lifted off from Lae, New Guinea, for the longest, most treacherous leg of the trip. Their target: Howland Island, a tiny speck of land in the Pacific, barely 2 square miles. Hitting it after flying over 2,500 miles of open ocean was an incredible navigational challenge. They were relying on their instruments, Noonan's skill at reading the stars, and a radio link to the US Coast Guard cutter Itasca, which was waiting to guide them in. But things started to go wrong. Scattered clouds likely made it tough for Noonan to get a solid celestial fix. Even worse, their radios were failing. The Itasca could hear Earhart's calls, but she apparently couldn't hear their replies. Her transmissions grew more and more tense. She reported they were close but couldn't see the island. The Itasca's crew desperately pumped thick black smoke from the ship's funnel to create a visual marker, but against the dark ocean, it would have been nearly impossible to spot from the air. Her voice, once calm and professional, started to show the strain. "We are circling but cannot see you," she radioed. Then, the final, haunting message: "We are on the line 157-337. We are running on line north and south." Then, nothing. The most famous aviator in the world had vanished mid-sentence. Earhart's disappearance launched the largest sea and air search in American history at that time. The US Navy and Coast Guard threw everything they had at it. Dozens of ships and planes swept across 250,000 square miles of ocean, an area bigger than Texas. President Franklin D. Roosevelt himself greenlit the massive operation, a sign of just how important Earhart was. For 16 agonizing days, the world waited. Newspapers screamed headlines, and radio bulletins buzzed with rumors. But the search parties found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, not even a life raft. It was as if the Electra had been plucked from the sky. On July 19, 1937, the official search was called off. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were declared lost at sea. But the total lack of evidence left a huge, unsettling question mark, creating a void that would be filled by decades of debate and incredible theories. The official story, accepted by the US government, is the crash and sink theory. It's the most straightforward explanation. Earhart and Noonan simply ran out of fuel looking for Howland Island, ditched the heavy Electra in the ocean, and sank thousands of feet to the bottom. This aligns with her last radio calls about being low on fuel. It's a logical conclusion, but for many, the complete absence of any wreckage has always been a sticking point. This leads to the most compelling alternative, the Nicomaro hypothesis. Nicomaro, once called Gardner Island, is a deserted atoll about 400 miles southeast of Howland. This theory suggests that when Earhart couldn't find Howland, she turned south along the navigational line she mentioned in her last broadcast, a line that runs right over Nicomaro. Proponents believe she spotted the island's flat coral reef and made an emergency landing at low tide. For days, they would have used the plane's radios to send distress calls whenever the tide was out. Amazingly, there's a trail of clues to back this up. In the days after she vanished, dozens of post-loss radio signals were reported by operators from Texas to Australia. While unconfirmed, they form a fascinating piece of the puzzle. Expeditions to the island by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIA, have found some tantalizing artifacts. These include pieces of a woman's 1930s style shoe, plexiglass fragments matching the Electra's windows, and even a jar of freckle cream. Most notable of all was a partial skeleton found in 1940. Though the bones were later lost, a 2018 re-examination of the original medical measurements concluded they were more similar to Earhart than 99% of individuals in a large reference sample. Explorers continue to be intrigued by the island, with recent sonar images and photos sparking new expeditions to investigate anomalies that some hope could finally be the plane's wreckage. However, so far, these promising leads have yet to yield definitive proof. Finally, there's the most sensational theory, Japanese capture. The story goes that Earhart and Noonan were on a secret mission to spy on Japanese military expansion in the Pacific. Veering off course, they either crashed or were forced down in the Marshall Islands and taken prisoner. This theory is fueled by anecdotal accounts from islanders and the lingering mystique of espionage. However, it is the least credible of the theories. A photograph once claimed to show Earhart and Noonan in Japanese custody was later proven to have been published in a book 2 years before her disappearance. Most serious researchers dismiss the spy theory as compelling fiction, but not fact. For over 80 years, Amelia Earhart's fate has remained one of history's great unsolved mysteries. Despite cutting-edge technology and relentless searching, no definitive proof, no smoking gun, has ever been found. A sonar blip that looks like a plane turns out to be a rock formation. A promising clue leads to another dead end. And maybe that's the source of its enduring power. The story ends not with a period, but with a question mark. What we know for sure is the legacy she left behind. Amelia Earhart was a true pioneer who showed millions that courage and ambition have no gender. Her life was about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Whether her flight ended in the crushing depths of the ocean or as a castaway on a remote shore, her legacy isn't about tragedy, it's about inspiration. In a letter to her husband, to be opened only if she didn't return, she wrote, "Please know I am quite aware of the hazards. Women must try to do things as men have tried. When they fail, their failure must be but a challenge to others. The search for answers continues, driven by explorers who won't let her story fade. What's your take on what really happened to Amelia Earhart? The crash, the castaway theory, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below.